Welcome back to the deep dive. You're tuning in to a session that is going to feel a little different today.
Oh, yeah.
Usually we're looking at these broad trends or, big ideas, but today we are going into the engine room.
I like that.
We are rolling up our sleeves and getting our hands dirty with the mechanics of how the world actually gets made.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's often overlooked, but this is, like you said, where the rubber meets the road.
So we have a very specific mission today. We are going to crack the code of NCERT Class 12 Microeconomics, and specifically Chapter 3, Production and Costs.
Okay.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Microeconomics, curves. In an audio format, it sounds intimidating.
It does. I get it.
But I promise, by the end of this, you aren't just going to understand these graphs. You're going to see them as a map of human behavior and business logic.
It really is the foundation of everything. If you don't get production, you just don't get the economy. You can't understand inflation or supply chains or market failure without this chapter.
Precisely. But before we step onto that factory floor, I have a very important mandatory shout-out.
Let's do it.
This content is explicitly focused for UPSC aspirants, and it's brought to you by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
A vital resource, really. For anyone serious about the civil services, we're definitely tailoring this analysis to help you clear those concepts.
100%. So here is my humble request to you. If you are getting value from this deep dive,
and we hope you are,
please subscribe to the channel. It directly supports the creation of this, this super useful content.
It really does.
And if you are capable, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have to give a massive warm shout out to all our current supporters. You guys are the ones keeping the lights on and allowing us to dig this deep.
We truly couldn't do the research without you. It takes time to break these complex topics down.
Also, engage with us. Take a second right now to like this deep dive, and please share your valuable comments. We read them, and they help us refine these sessions.
Absolutely. Tell us what's working, what you're struggling with.
And for the resources, because we know you can't revise just by listening, we have free notes with practice past year questions, or PYQs, available on the public Telegram channel.
And those PYQs are, believe me, non-negotiable if you want to clear the exam. You have to see how the theory translates to the actual test paper.
For sure. But if you want the all-access pass to get all the videos in this series at once, along with the organized premium notes.
And those include detailed breakdowns, extra PYQs, model mains answers.
Then you should join the private Telegram library. Just DM us on the public Telegram channel to join. Okay, logistics handled.
Good. Let's get into it.
Let's set the scene. Introduce us to the shift here. In the last few deep dives, we were kind of obsessed with the consumer.
We were.
We were looking at indifference curves, budget lines, utility. Basically, what do I want and can I afford it?
Right. We were totally on the demand side, the person with the wallet. We just assumed the goods were, there on the shelf waiting to be bought.
Today, the camera angle changes completely.
Today, we flip the coin. We're moving from the consumer to the producer. The core objective of this deep dive is to understand the supply side of the story.
So how stuff gets made.
Exactly. We need to understand how a firm, whether it's a giant car manufacturer or, a small corner bakery, maximizes its profit. And to do that, we have to understand the mechanics of converting inputs into output.
So we're basically looking at the recipe.
That is actually the perfect analogy. We are looking at the production function, which you can absolutely think of as the recipe of economics.
Right, let's unpack that then. Section 1, the production function. When I hear function, I get these high school math flashbacks. Is a production function just a physical place, like a factory?
No, and that is a really common misconception. A production function is not a building. It's not a warehouse.
Okay.
It is a purely mathematical and technological relationship. The text defines it as the relationship between inputs, what we call factors of production, and output.
So it's literally an equation.
It is represented as an equation, yes. We write it as Q equals F of X1, X2.
Okay, let's break that down variable by variable. What is Q?
The Q represents the output, but not just any old output. It represents the maximum output you can produce with a given set of inputs.
Okay, why is the word maximum so important there?
Because the production function assumes total efficiency. It tells you what you can produce if you don't waste any resources. So if you have 5 workers and 5 machines, and everyone's slacking off or the management is bad, you might produce 50 units. But the production function might say, hey, technically, with that equipment, the technological limit is 100 units. The function defines the ceiling of what is possible.
I see. So it's the best case scenario. It assumes the firm is rational and trying to be efficient. And I assume X1 and X2 are the ingredients.
Precisely. They represent the quantities of different inputs. In our simplified model for this chapter and for the UPSC syllabus generally, we usually talk about two main factors, labor and capital. So let's just say X1 is the amount of labor, so number of workers, and X2 is the amount of capital machines, land, tools, that kind of thing.
Let's make this concrete. The source material uses a great example of a shoemaker. Can we just walk through that?
Let's do it. So imagine manufacturer producing shoes. To make shoes, she needs inputs. She has specific resources, worker 1 and worker 2.
Okay.
She also has machine 1 and machine 2. And let's say she has 10 kilograms of raw materials, like leather and rubber.
Got it. So those are the inputs, the X values.
Correct. The production function tells us that if you combine worker 1 with machine 1 plus the raw materials, you get a specific output, say 10 pairs of shoes. It's a deterministic relationship.
So input A plus input B equals output C. It's not a guess. It's like an engineering fact.
It's an engineering fact, exactly. But here is my question for you. What happens if technology improves? Like what if the machine gets a software update, or the worker learns a faster way to stitch, or maybe someone invents a laser cutter that wastes less leather?
Then you'd get more shoes.
You get more shoes from the same inputs. And that's a crucial point. A production function is defined for a given technology.
Okay, so if the tech changes.
The function itself changes. The whole equation is different. Suddenly, those same workers and same machines aren't producing 10 pairs. Maybe they're producing 15. The relationship between input and output has fundamentally shifted.
That makes perfect sense. It's like getting a better oven for your bakery. Same ingredients, same baker, but the bread rises faster or bakes more evenly.
Exactly. This is why economists say that technology shifts the production curve upward. You get more for less.
Now, before we can even analyze how many shoes to make, we have to talk about time. And this is where economics gets a little abstract.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
We need to distinguish between what you can do right now versus what you can do later.
Right. So section 2, time travel. I remember reading this and thinking, wait, is the short run a month, a fiscal quarter? Is the long run a decade?
And the answer to all of those is neither.
Okay, explain.
In economics, time isn't measured by a calendar. It's not measured in days or years. It's measured by flexibility.
Flexibility.
We distinguish between the short run and the long run based on what you can change.
Okay, so define the short run for us then.
The short run is defined as a period where at least one input is fixed. It cannot be changed.
Fixed? You mean like physically bolted to the floor?
In a sense, yes. Think of fixed inputs like the factory building itself or heavy specialized machinery. You cannot just snap your fingers and double the size of your factory overnight. It takes time.
Right. Permits, construction?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have a lease contract for 1 year. For that year, that factory is a fixed factor.
But you can change other things, right? I can order more leather tomorrow. I can call in a temp worker for the afternoon shift.
Yes, and those are the variable inputs, things like raw materials, electricity, or daily labor. You want to make more shoes tomorrow? You can't build a new factory by tomorrow, but you can ask your workers to work overtime.
Or hire a casual laborer for the day. So short run equals some things are stuck, which are the fixed inputs, and some things can change, the variable ones.
Correct. And that implies that in the short run, the firm can only increase output by changing the variable input.
Yeah.
You're constrained by your fixed factors. You're just trying to squeeze more productivity out of the same building.
Which brings us, naturally, to the long run.
The long run is a period where all factors of production can be varied. There are no fixed inputs anymore.
So in the long run, I can buy more land, build a second factory, buy 10 new robots.
Exactly. In the long run, everything is flexible. All those constraints they disappear. If market demand is huge, you don't just add workers, you build a bigger plant.
But for now,
For the next few sections, we are going to live in the short run, because that's where the most interesting problems arise. That is where we see the tension between the fixed machine and the variable worker.
okay, so we're in the short run. We have a factory, which is fixed, and we are adding workers, which are variable. How do we measure what we're actually making? This brings us to section 3, measuring output, TP, AP, and MP.
Right. And we have 3 main metrics. The first is total product, or TP.
This seems straightforward. It's just the total number of shoes, right?
Yes. It is the relationship between the variable input, so let's just say labor, and the total output, keeping the other inputs fixed.
Okay.
If you look at it on a graph, The TP curve usually rises as you add workers, but the way it rises changes. It rises steeply at first, then it flattens out, and eventually it can even fall.
It can fall. We'll get to that. That sounds like a disaster for a business.
Oh, it is. But next we have average product, or AP.
Which is just the average.
Yep. Specifically, it's output divided by input. So total product divided by the number of workers, it measures the productivity per unit of input.
So for example, if you make 50 shoes with 5 workers, the average product is 10 shoes per worker.
Exactly. It tells you, on average, how much each person is contributing.
Simple enough. Now, the big one. The one that I feel like economists are just obsessed with. Marginal product, or MP.
This is arguably the most important concept in the chapter. If you get nothing else from today, get this.
Okay.
Marginal product measures the change. It is the change in output resulting from using one more unit of the variable input.
The formula is delta Q over delta X1, but let's use the discrete example from the text because that really helped me visualize it.
Sure. So let's say you have one worker and he produces 10 units.
Okay. Total product is 10.
Now you hire a second worker. With 2 workers, your total product rises to 24 units.
Okay, so TP went from 10 to 24.
So the marginal product of that second worker is the difference. It's 24 minus 10, which is 14. That second worker added 14 units to the total.
Wait, hang on. The first guy only did 10. The second guy added 14. Did we hire a superhero or something? Why is the second guy so much better?
He's not necessarily better or stronger, and this is a key point. It's usually due to the division of labor. With 2 people, you can specialize. One cuts the leather, one stitches. They don't have to keep switching tools. They're more efficient together than they were alone. So the marginal contribution of the second unit of labor is higher.
I see. So total product is basically just the sum of all the marginal products added together.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you add the MP of the first worker, which was 10, plus the MP of the second worker, which was 14, you get the total product of 24.
But this synergy, this getting better together thing, it doesn't last forever, does it? We can't just keep adding workers and getting better and better results.
No. And this leads us directly to Section 4, the law of diminishing marginal product. This is the iron law of the short run.
Yeah, I've always wondered about this. If adding workers makes us more efficient, why don't we just add 1 million workers to one factory and produce infinite shoes?
Because of the fixed input. Remember, we are in the short run. You have one factory, one set of machines.
Right. Can't change that.
So the law states, if you keep increasing one input, like labor, while holding the other fixed, like capital, eventually, the marginal contribution of the extra worker must fall.
Walk us through the logic. Why must it fall? It feels like a law of nature.
It kind of is. Think about the factor proportions. Initially, you have plenty of machinery and not enough hands. The machines are sitting idle part of the time. Adding workers helps utilize the unused capacity of the machines, so MP rises.
Okay, that's the increasing returns phase. Everyone's happy, everything's getting more efficient.
But eventually, you have the perfect number of workers for your machines. Every machine is running 204/7. Now, if you add one more worker, what happens?
They start bumping into each other.
Exactly, crowding. The factory floor gets congested. Maybe the new guy has to wait for someone else to finish using the hammer. He spends half his shift standing around waiting for a tool. The ratio of workers to machines becomes inefficient. The fixed input becomes a bottleneck.
So the MP falls. The next worker adds less than the previous one.
Yes. The third worker might add 12 units. The fourth might add 8. The fifth might add just 2. Total is still going up, but the extra amount you get from each new hire is shrinking.
And if you keep going, if you just keep hiring...
Eventually, MP can become negative. If you hire the 50th worker in a tiny room, you might just get in everyone's way, knock things over, distract people.
Yeah.
Total output actually shrinks.
That's the law of variable proportions, right? Describing that full cycle.
Yes. It describes the 3 stages. 1, MP rises because of efficiency and specialization. 2, MP falls because of diminishing returns and crowding. And 3, MP becomes negative, which is just chaos.
It's fascinating how universal this is. It happens when you're studying, too. The first hour is super productive. The 10th hour, you're actually unlearning things because you're so tired.
That's a perfect application of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Your brain is the fixed factor. It has a limit. You can pour more hours and the variable input in,
Right.
but eventually the returns diminish.
Okay, let's try to visualize this for everyone listening. We're in section 5, the shapes of the curves. We have these 3 lines on a graph. TP, AP, and MP. Can you paint the picture for us?
Let's start with the total product, or TP, curve. It starts at 0, obviously. It goes up. Initially, it curves upward like a smile. It's getting steeper because MP is rising.
Okay.
Then, as diminishing returns hit, it keeps going up, but it flattens out like a frown. And finally, if MP becomes negative, the TP curve actually starts to slope downwards.
Right. And what about the MP and AP curves?
These are both inverse U-shaped. Imagine an upside-down U. They go up, they hit a peak, and then they come down.
But they interact in a very specific way, don't they? There's a geometric relationship that the text highlights, and I know for a fact that examiners love to test this intersection.
Yes, the relationship between average and marginal is a mathematical certainty. It's not an opinion, it's just math.
Okay.
So think of it this way. When marginal is greater than average, so MP is above AP, the average is rising.
And when marginal is less than average, the average is falling.
Correct.
I use the test score analogy for this. It always clears it up for me.
It is the best analogy. Go for it.
Okay, so if my average score in class is an 80, that's my AP, my average product, and I take a new test, that's the marginal one, the extra test. If I score a 90 on that new test, well, 90 is higher than 80, so my class average goes up.
Exactly. The marginal drags the average up.
But if I get a 50 on the new test, my average is going to drop. Even though 50 isn't 0, it's lower than my average, so it pulls the whole thing down.
Perfect. So what happens when the new test score is exactly the same as the average?
The average doesn't change. It stays flat.
Right. And because of this math, there is a critical intersection point on the graph. The MP curve always cuts the AP curve at the AP curve's maximum point.
Why the maximum?
Well, think about the logic. As long as MP is higher than AP, AP is climbing. It just keeps climbing. The moment MP drops below AP, AP has to start falling.
Sure.
So the transition point, the very peak where AP stops rising and starts falling, is exactly where MP has to equal AP.
That's a great visual. So if you see a graph where those lines cross, that crossing point is the absolute peak of the average product.
Precisely. That is a rule you can bank on.
Okay, we've beaten the short run to death. Let's break out of these factory constraints. Section 6. Returns to scale. We are now in the long run.
Freedom. In the long run, we can change everything. We can double the labor A&D, double the machines. We can build a second factory identical to the first one.
So the question here is totally different. It's what happens to output if we double all inputs?
We call this returns to scale. And notice the word scale. We are changing the scale of the entire operation, not just the proportions of inputs.
Okay.
And there are three possibilities. First, you could have constant returns to scale, or CRS.
Yeah.
This is where if you double all your inputs, your output doubles exactly.
It feels intuitive. 2 factories produce twice as much as 1.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
It's very common in established industries. But sometimes you get increasing returns to scale, IRS. This is where output more than doubles.
How is that even possible? Is that magic?
It's specialization again, but on a much grander scale. If you scale up massively, maybe you can finally implement an assembly line that wasn't possible in a small shop. You can use specialized software. You can buy bulk materials for cheaper. You gain efficiency from pure size.
And the third option has to be the opposite.
Decreasing returns to scale, or DRS. You double the inputs, but your output, it less than doubles.
Sounds like bureaucracy setting in.
It often is. It's all about the inefficiencies of management and coordination. When a firm gets too huge, communication breaks down. It's harder to monitor everyone. Decisions take longer. A small speedboat can turn quickly. A supertanker takes miles to turn. You lose that agility.
And typically a firm goes through all these phases, right?
Yes. Usually firms experience increasing returns initially as they grow from small to medium. Then they hit a sweet spot of constant returns where they're stable. And if they get too bloated, they hit decreasing returns.
All right, we've covered the production side, the physical stuff, the shoes. Now we need to talk money. Section 7, from physics to finance, introduction to costs.
This is the big shift. From how many shoes can we make to how much does it cost to make them?
Because a firm isn't just trying to make the most shoes, they want to make the most profit.
Exactly. And to do that, they need to understand their cost function. This is defined as the least cost of producing a specific level of output, given the prices of the inputs.
And that least cost part is important again. We assume the firm is smart. They aren't paying more than they have to. They are minimizing waste.
Always. Okay. So just like with production, we have to start with short-run costs. And we split these into 2 buckets, fixed and variable.
This mirrors our inputs.
It does. First, total fixed cost, or TFC. These are costs that do not change with output.
Right, the rent on the factory.
Perfect example. The salary of permanent staff, the license fee, insurance premiums.
So even if you produce 0 shoes one month, you still have to pay rent.
Correct. If you shut down for renovations, the landlord still demands the check.
That is a scary thought for a business owner. The clock is always, always ticking.
It is. Graphically, the TFC curve is just a horizontal straight line. It stays at, say, $1,000, regardless of whether your output is 1 or 100. It's a sunk cost in the short run.
And the other bucket.
Total variable costs, or TVC. These costs do change with output.
Like the leather for the shoes.
Raw materials, casual daily labor, electricity usage. If you produce 0 shoes, your TVC is 0. You don't buy leather if you aren't making shoes. If you produce more, TVC goes up.
And what's the shape of this curve?
It's an upward sloping inverse S shape. And the reason why is, well, it's derived directly from the law of variable proportions we just discussed.
Of course. Everything connects.
It has to. Think about it. Initially, you have increasing returns, right? High efficiency. So to make the first few shoes, you don't need much extra labor. Your costs rise, but slowly.
Okay.
Then, as diminishing returns hit, you need more and more workers to make that next shoe. So your costs start shooting up steeply. The curve gets steeper as your output grows.
And total cost TC is just the sum of the two.
Yes. TC equals TFC plus TVC. The curve looks just like the TVC curve, the same S shape, but it's shifted up vertically by the amount of the fixed cost. It starts at the fixed cost level, not at 0.
Okay. Section 8. Now we get into the metrics that business people actually talk about. Averages and marginals again. These are the curves that usually terrify students.
Let's demystify them. It's just division, really.
Let's start with average fixed cost, AFC.
The formula is just TFC divided by output. Think about the math. TFC is a constant number, let's say 1,000. You're dividing it by your output Q, which is getting bigger and bigger.
So 1,000 divided by 1 is 1,000. 1,000 by 10 is 100. 1,000 by 1,000 is 1.
So what's happening to it?
It falls continuously.
Exactly. The curve is a rectangular hyperbola. It just falls and falls, getting closer and closer to 0, but it never actually touches the axis. You can spread your fixed costs thin, but they never completely disappear.
Okay. Average variable cost, AVC.
That's TVC divided by output. This curve is U-shaped because of our old friend, diminishing returns. It falls initially because of increasing returns. Your workers are specializing, they're super efficient, so the average cost per shoe drops. But then it hits a minimum and starts rising.
Yeah.
That's diminishing returns kicking in. Crowding, inefficiencies.
Right.
They drive the average cost back up.
And short-run average cost, SAC.
Is just the sum of AFC plus AVC. Since AVC is always falling and AVC is U-shaped, the SAC is also U-shaped. It falls, bottoms out, and rises.
Okay, here comes the heavy hitter. Short-run marginal cost, SMC.
SMC is the extra cost to produce one more unit. And here is the fascinating connection, the bridge between the two halves of this entire chapter. It is the inverse of marginal product.
Explain that. This is the key.
Think about it. If your marginal product is rising, meaning your next worker is super efficient and adds a ton of output, then you don't need much labor to make the next unit.
Right.
If you don't need much labor, you don't pay much on wages. So the cost of that next unit, the SMC, is falling. High productivity equals low marginal cost.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then, when the law of diminishing returns hits, when your MP falls, you need more labor to squeeze out that next unit. You're paying guys to stand around and wait for tools. So the cost of that unit, the SMC, starts rising.
Low productivity equals high marginal cost.
Exactly. That is why the SMC curve is also U-shaped. It's a mirror image of the MP curve, but flipped upside down.
And we have another intersection rule here, don't we? This is the one that shows up in every single exam.
We do. The SMC curve cuts both the AVC and the SAC curves at their minimum points.
It's the test score analogy all over again.
It is, but with costs. If the cost of the next shoe, the marginal cost, is lower than the average, it's going to drag the average cost down.
And if the cost of the next shoe is higher than the average, it pulls the average up.
So the only place they can possibly cross is exactly at the bottom, at that minimum point where the average stops falling and starts rising.
And there's a quick note here about the area under the curve.
Yes. The area under the SMC curve up to a certain quantity equals the total variable cost. That's a little bit of calculus for you, but it just highlights again how these marginals sum up to the totals.
We're in the home stretch. Section 9, long run costs.
Back to the long run. And remember, in the long run, all inputs are variable. So there is no such thing as a fixed cost. Total cost equals total variable cost.
So what does the long run average cost, or LRAC, curve look like?
It is derived from those returns to scale we talked about way back when.
Okay.
If you have increasing returns to scale, it means you're getting more efficient as you get bigger, so costs are falling. LREC slopes
If
down.
you have constant returns.
LREC is flat.
And if you have decreasing returns.
Costs rise as you get too big, so LREC slopes up.
So if a firm goes through all three of those phases.
The LREC is also U-shaped, but it's much flatter, a much broader U than the short-run curves. It's often called the envelope curve.
Why envelope? That's a weird name.
Because it sort of wraps around all the possible short-run curves. Imagine you're planning a factory. You could build a small one, a medium one, or a large one. Each of those sizes has its own short-run average cost curve.
Right.
The long-run curve is just the boundary, the envelope of all those options. It represents the best possible cost for any output level if you have the time to plan and build the perfect size factory for that output.
Wow. That is a lot of curves, but the logic, it holds together beautifully.
It is a logical system. Production efficiency drives cost behavior. If you are inefficient on the factory floor with a low MP, you will be expensive in the finance department with a high MC.
So let's wrap this all up. We started with the production function, the recipe. We added time constraints, the short versus the long run. We saw how the law of diminishing marginal product forces productivity down eventually. And we saw how that leads directly to the U-shaped cost curves that define so many business decisions.
Exactly. It explains why you can't just expand a factory forever without costs eventually eating your profits. It explains why firms have an optimal size.
Now, here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. The text assumes the firm's goal is always profit maximization. That's the golden rule. But in the real world, do firms always do that? Do they sometimes burn money just to gain market share? Think about tech startups.
Or do they prioritize just plain survival over profit in a downturn?
Exactly. And how does this long-run planning actually happen when technology changes faster than you can build a factory? By the time you build a long-run plant, the production function itself has already changed.
That is the dynamic nature of real-world economics. The static models are the foundation, they're the skeleton, but reality is the flesh and blood, and it's always, always moving.
I love it. Okay, guys, before you go, I have to remind you one last time. This deep dive was a presentation for Simplified UPSC by PPP. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It makes a huge difference.
And if you are capable, please support us on Patreon. It allows us to keep bringing you this super useful content.
Don't forget to like this deep dive and share your valuable comment. We really want to hear from you. What stood out? What was your aha moment?
And remember all the resources. The free notes and practice PYQs are on the public Telegram channel.
But for the full experience, the full library of videos, detailed premium notes, extra PYQs, and model man's answers, join the private Telegram library. Just DM us on the public channel to get in.
Keep learning.
And we'll see you in the next deep dive.